February 20th, January 24th. All members present except Councilman McCarthy. Okay, I've invited Mr. Braun and Ms. Landale here to be, give us a little more succinct presentation as to how this land bank works.
Thank you.
You're on camera, by the way.
Oh, fantastic.
okay.
Thank you.
There you go.
So thank you for the opportunity to come before the Town of Smithtown Work Board session today to talk a little bit about the Suffolk County's application before the Empire State Development Corporation to establish a land bank. Back in July of 2011, New York State amended the not-for-profit corporation law to allow for the creation of 10 land banks statewide. The first round of applications occurred last year. We applied and were not successful. We're applying now for the second time. The application is due January 30th, and a land bank, for the purposes of Suffolk County's application, we've identified over 100 tax delinquent properties that have possible environmental contamination concerns that have been flagged internally by our Department of Health. And what we'd like to do is possibly transfer these sites one by one in a deliberative process in consultation with our towns for eventual cleanup, remediation, and redevelopment of these properties. And I'm here with Bob Braun of Suffolk, the Law Department, to answer any specific questions that you have regarding this. And thanks again for the opportunity.
Well, a question was raised by a councilman who's not here today, and I called Bob, I don't know when that was, Thursday or Friday, whatever, and I said, best that you come and explain it. His point in support of doing this was that once the county took these two lands, or the Land Bank Association took these two properties, that would forestall any illegal use on the property. As you all know, one of the properties here has a continuing use. Technically, it belongs to the county, but the operator still operates. Mm-hmm. And his question was, or at least his statement was, that he thought it would be best to put these properties into the land bank, because once the land bank had it, then the illegal uses or the continued use would end. And that's why I wanted Bob.
The way the land bank is intended to work, or the way we foresee it working, is that as properties are identified, they would be recommended to the board of the land bank. The board of the land bank would then ask the county legislature to transfer the tax lien, not the property itself, but the lien, to the land bank.
Okay.
Then the land bank would find somebody interested in cleaning it up and developing it. The advantage to the land bank over doing that directly with the county is that the county is required to get from everybody who might accept the lien the full amount of the lien, except the statute creating the land bank says that the lien can be transferred to the land bank for essentially nothing, for $1, $10, whatever it may be. So we would transfer the liens to the land bank, and say a property had $1 million in tax arrears. That $1 million in tax arrears right now has been preventing us from finding somebody willing to spend on the cleanup, because they would have to pay the tax arrears and then the cleanup costs.
Right.
So this would eliminate the tax lien costs and maybe make the properties more economically viable. The direct answer to your question is the land bank or the ultimate buyer would have to foreclose on the lien and take title, and then could evict whoever was in possession. And if this is a property that we're thinking of them as the former owner, but in reality, unless the county has taken title, not just the tax lien, but the title, the former owner is still the owner.
Sure.
And the county is just a lien holder.
Which they have not yet.
As to the property, if we're thinking of the same property, I believe that it's still
There's two properties on the
owned
road.
by the owners.
And they won't take the property.
They won't take it.
And the county doesn't want to take the property, because then the
Understood.
county becomes
And
responsible for the
right.
cleanup.
There was a question raised here, too. there's approximately $80,000 that we collect for the various districts from those properties. And once we transfer those to the land bank, do the taxes cease?
The taxes going forward are abated during the time that the land bank owns the
Okay.
property. But, as I said, we're not going to, in bulk, take properties and let them sit in the land
Okay,
bank.
let me, what you said the land bank owned the property, so if we were to say, we're going to transfer these to you, you don't own the properties, is that correct?
When the lien becomes owned by the
When the
land
lien
bank,
becomes owned by the land bank?
yeah, we believe that that as well would remove the property from the tax rolls. And you're right, what we refer to as the supervisor's portion of the tax
Right.
bill
Right.
would no longer be fulfilled as to those
Yes.
properties. But we're not going to simply take the properties in. It's going to be on a path forward that they'll be identified, some way of remediating them or some way of redeveloping them will be identified. And then, on the recommendation of the towns and on the recommendation of the Board of the Land Bank to the legislature, each property will be considered one at a time. I'm not going to say take 124 or however many properties we have and
Right.
put them all in the land bank
One at a time.
to end the tax liability going forward until we know what we're going to do with them, or at least have a pretty good idea.
Right, and we'll work hand in hand with the towns in prioritizing which sites should be transferred at which time to the land bank.
Has there been any past successes doing this?
There's been, land banks are not new around the country, so there's been successful models in other parts of the country.
Right.
Flint, Michigan, for instance, and others. And there's currently 5 land banks that have been approved in New York State. I looked up, checked in on them last week to see, and they're just in the early stages of incorporating, and so there's,
So this is relatively new in this area.
yes.
The New
Yes.
York State, the not-for-profit corporation law of the state was amended in 2010 to permit this, and the first 5 land banks were authorized just 6 months ago.
Yes.
So they don't have any real experience yet going forward. And not every instance does the land bank have the same goals as the one we have. In other localities, for example, the county doesn't pay the full tax bill for the towns. So
Right.
the towns may be what are referred to in the law as foreclosing governmental entities, and so the town may have, or the village may have, a land bank in combination with the town or another village or whatever, so that they can address the problems they have. And it's not only for remediation, cleanup, and restoring the property to the tax roll, but it's also for, in some instances, for affordable housing, for urban redevelopment, and so on and so forth.
I have one last question.
Yes, sir.
Assuming that the town says, okay, you can take these 2 properties into the land bank, and you were successful into the future to have somebody purchase the property, will the property remain at the current zoning?
That's up to the town.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's an important question.
Yes.
Right. We
Yes,
still
we're-
we still have that authority.
Oh, yes.
The land bank has no
No
authority
authority, okay.
over zoning or rezoning, or, that all has to go through your planning process and through your zoning process.
So they have to comply with local zoning.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, you need a letter or affirmative action from the town board to say, we would like to do this?
Yes,
By the
we're-
31st?
Yes, we're
Okay.
requesting a town board resolution in support, and I have a sample resolution here for your consideration.
Okay.
31st of this month?
Well, the
Yes.
application is due on that day, so if we could have it,
Okay.
say, by 15 minutes from now, that
And that could
that would
happen.
be perfect.
The speed of light.
Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank
All
you.
right, Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you all
sir.
very
Bob?
much. I appreciate the
Take care.
opportunity.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So there is a deadline. I would support doing it. You all on board for that?
No
I
complaints.
think so.
Okay.
I think it's,
So I'll get
the
a
only
resolution
concern
done
was
today.
that stall in the tax rate rules, but it's, our portion of it is minimal, no?
Yeah. But,
Couldn't we put it on this evening?
yeah, I will.
This afternoon.
But it portends that maybe those properties can be of some use
Some
and a
use.
more viable.
Yeah, but
Wait,
not-
No, I agree. They're only gonna stay the
Consistent
way
with the
they are
zoning.
if we don't do it.
Okay, so I'll get that done for tonight. I have a list here of what we talked about here. Okay, red light cameras, okay, that's open discussion.
Yep.
I sent you a list that was sent to me yesterday. Where's John? So I need, well,
Coming in.
I had Matt Jakubowski do all the legality here, because these guys are pushing and pressuring, and there's no real answers that once we say okay to these intersections. So we'll defer till they come in here. We have the highway superintendent here, but that, I believe, should be executive session.
Coming in?
Okay? On the tool allocation that you guys referenced, that's already been settled by Mr. Necroto because it's governed by Internal Revenue Law, correct?
Correct.
Tool allocation. That's already
Yeah,
governed
that's
by
all.
law, so that's a settled matter.
Okay, it's 7.
You have that list in front of you? Number 4 is executive session.
Yes. I think 3, 4, and 5
Okay,
should be executive. Number 6,
that's
Nope.
also executive, that's
That should be
contractual.
executive.
okay.
The red light cameras is open discussion. The county started out with a kind of a blank check proposal saying we would like to implement cameras on a town and a town intersection, a town and a county intersection, and a county intersection. And the list has been furnished to us, which I sent to you fellows.
Right.
Okay? There's a deadline, and I asked some questions yesterday of the county people, saying, well, if we agree to let you do a traffic study on those intersections, are we now committed to allow you to do that? And he wasn't clear on it, so I gave it to the town attorney, Matt Jakubowski. Are you here, Matt? Oh, here he is, Matt. Do you want to discuss that, please, with the board?
Come on, Matt.
Well, I reviewed the documents, and what they included with the proposal was a letter agreement. And in the letter agreement, it kind of takes us to the end goal of them installing the cameras. So we'd be giving them permission to go in our right-of-way to do this study to see whether or not the cameras are required at these intersections, and then install them. I think the better course of action would probably be, we could do a similar letter agreement, but just to allow them to do the right-of-way first, the study first.
Not the installation.
Then, if they find that they want to go into the intersections, then we can do a subsequent agreement
Okay.
to install. So it'll give us an opportunity to maybe compare their findings with what we have and have a more prudent approach.
No, I think it is. We could show it to our traffic
Yeah.
people also to take a look at.
But what's interesting to me here is this is a county proposal. And yet, the county legislator, or legislators, I don't know if there's more than one, are not even aware of this happening. I spoke to Mr. Kennedy yesterday. So we ought to find out, at least from Mr. Kennedy, what his sense of this is before we commit. That's my opinion.
Yes.
Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's my understanding, though, that we don't benefit from this in
No
any
benefit,
way
none.
except for whatever safety
Correct, correct.
matters come out of it, as long as we clearly understand. that.
Correct. Okay, so we're good with that?
So we're going to contact
Kennedy,
Legislator Kennedy.
and let him give us some advice, and then if we have to write this subtle letter of agreement that doesn't commit us, then we can do that.
Yes.
Just as
Okay.
you explained, to
Okay.
do the one phase,
Yeah,
and then,
okay.
and then we can go back from phase 2 of installation.
Yes.
If we have to reload, okay?
Okay, I think that we can do this. There's an open position for the senior center manager position. That's on hold because the person requested is lacking some part of a degree or something, and that's all in flux, so that can't go forward
Correct.
until that's settled.
Okay.
I think that one vacant SAG and CSA positions, I believe that's contractual and should be discussed in executive session.
Right.
And the other one that's open is the WSI public hearing scheduled for Thursday night. I don't know what
That
that
we just
discussion.
had, I just had a couple questions for Mr. DeRubius. I don't know if he's coming.
Not here?
over. If not, I could do it via phone.
Okay.
Um,
But there is
That's
that
for
here.
tonight. That's on for
We're
tonight.
holding this tonight.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, so,
The only other issue I had is requesting from the board if there's, anyone agrees about the possibility of scheduling a capital budget work session, so that we have the capital budget
Yep.
preliminarily. I myself would like to have Mr. Nacroto and these department heads come in to review that before we
well,
make any
let me just
decisions.
say, Lou and I met with all those department heads who have outstanding capital projects that are not fulfilled. We'll have that report, and that will be included when you have that meeting on the capital budget,
Oh, that's fine.
okay?
You had given us,
You want to speak about it now?
Come on.
Fine.
Come on up.
Mr. Supervisor, you had given us a date for February 4th. You want to do it?
If you want a work session,
that-
Mr. McCarthy has got a medical problem. I didn't understand his memo. I should have understood it. I can't do it on the 5th because he's got a medical problem that
Yeah, well,
morning.
the memo said the 4th, which I think. we're
Yeah, so
okay
I
with.
said, if you're okay with the 4th, then
okay?
I will put that on for agenda tonight.
That's Monday before,
Yeah.
so that's fine. Maybe we could have some department heads in for discussion on it if we're prepared about the capital that day.
Yeah, I second that. I'd like to hear from the department heads.
Come on up.
Good morning, Mr. Supervisor,
Morning.
council members. Lou Nacroto, Town Comptroller. We interviewed most of the department heads that have the largest share of existing capital projects, asking them to explain what they were, their life expectancy, and then plus also digging into our accounting system to look at how long, looking at their age, and then kind of comparing that to the list of requests to try and give some guidance as to what some of these older, or I'll say retired projects might possibly be used for. In our HO2 account, which we've designated for highway purposes, you have approximately $420,000 in the contingency account, which could be used for, basically not being used for a project currently, so it's money that's
What is that, how much?
$420,000.
420?
Right. Now, some requests that we have for the highway department are a tank monitoring system, a truck washing system, and then also the redesign of an intersection, I believe, at Landing Avenue in Edgewood. Those total approximately $380,000. Something I don't know is, I understand there's a third phase of Nissaquag dredging. We call that Nissaquag 3. I don't know what that might cost, but I'm hearing that what was supposed to have been the tail end of the Nichols Road project that could have been floated up to that may not be as lucrative as, or as,
Costly?
well, the project may be more costly
More costly.
than originally
Nichols
anticipated.
Road?
Right.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly what would be available to bring over to that project, so those are things to consider. The, moving on, HO3 account, which we designate for the Smithtown Landing Golf and Country Club, we have approximately $24,000 in the contingency account, and there's another $40,000 sitting in projects for pool improvements that have been around since 2004, 2005, and I don't see an awful lot of activity in them. I don't know Once again, I don't know if there's any plan to use them, or if there's any pressing need to repair the pool or improve it. But I do know that there's been some requests for items to be placed in the country club. One of them is an upgraded alarm system for about $175,000.
Excuse me, Lou, you had 24 for the golf course and 40 for the pool?
42.
Correct. About 40 for the pool.
All right.
I'm using round figures.
Okay.
So, but I think what you're saying is if you go ahead with one of the projects, let's say the surveillance cameras that you have 24,000 available,
Plus another 40.
plus another 40 to lend to that capital project.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, I understand the idea is not to shave us to the bone in every respect, to leave us with no latitude to do anything, but I mean, obviously this wouldn't pay, this isn't $175,000, but it could take a significant percentage of that project cost on. Moving on to the general fund, which is our HO5 account, we have approximately, I view, there's almost no money in contingency, but we've found approximately $120,000 in projects that could probably be abandoned at this point that are funded, meaning that there would be money going back into contingency, and that there is some serial bond money that we received for the purposes of the animal shelter, and that we do have some requests to do a renovation or an expansion on the animal shelter, and that money could probably be used for that purpose. So even though that's on our request list, I think it's possible we have funds that would meet that need. And I was looking into, and I haven't got an answer from bond counsel at this point, but I'm almost certain we have serial bond money for a roll-off truck that we purchased for the MSF CNG roll-off truck, and there was $35,000 left in that project, and it was thought that we might use that to purchase additional equipment used with that vehicle, and I don't think that's something we'd be able to do. So approximately $35,000 would have to be returned to bond principal. We'd have to pay that back.
So what we basically, we arrived at was all these leftover, if I could use that word, will be, if we decide to bond the items in the original list, then we have some money there to add to that, so it would lessen the borrowing.
That's correct.
Okay.
And you also have some money that's going to be going back
Yes,
to bond principal that
Right.
would lower your debt service
Service, right.
that's current.
Before we establish the new capital. request.
correct.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's see, we took care of it.
Thanks, Lou.
You're welcome.
No.
Oh, we're gonna talk about it tonight.
Oh,
This is done.
I guess you can bring it up because Frank Rubius isn't here.
Okay, so we do need to go into executive session with the highway department.
There's a question
Oh.
on number
I just
8.
apologize, I had this in my calendar, 10 o'clock, but then I guess it was changed to 9:30 by
Right.
the memo, so I
Okay.
apologize. Just, I just talked to Councilman Malloy. Councilman Ware, on this list number 8, I guess you already had, did you discuss your WSI issues on that with the public minutes?
We're waiting for Mr. Doobies.
We're gonna, I can discuss that via phone with him for tonight. It's on
Okay.
for tonight, the public
Right,
hearing,
Right.
correct?
Okay. So then I'll move to go into executive session?
Yes.
Could I just, before we go,
Sure.
Supervisor, I see Mr. Jorgensen here, his deputy. If we do this capital budget work session on the 4th, I believe, right? Will you have information, if you so desire, to move forward with additional road work over and above your road program
Yes,
that you can present to the board?
yes. I sent that in, I gave it to you at the beginning of this
Okay.
year.
No, I just want to know if you'll be prepared to come and discuss that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll move to go into executive session.
Second.
New nasty, right? They're nasty. They're nasty.
They don't like you.
Who
Okay,
does?
get ready.
We ready to go?
Yep.
I'll move to close the meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is closed.